Welcome to the Rum Revival. My name's Arminder, and today I'm highlighting a number of new rum releases from the last month or two. Now, it's not everything that's come out, just the rums that I think are notable and interesting to talk about. Now, these aren't necessarily going to be available everywhere in the US, at least not right now. Some of these rums have only just come out, and it can take a few weeks before they're available throughout the country. But definitely keep an eye out for them. Now, we've got 3 brands with multiple releases, but before we get to them, let's start off with one of the rums that I've been looking forward to for months now, Charanda Uruapan Reposado. Now, this is a cane juice spirit from the state of Michoacan in Mexico. Charandas are a domination of origin spirit, much in the same way that tequila and mezcal are. Now, they're protected by a number of different regulations to define how you can actually make them. Now, you've probably seen the Uruapan Blanco release. That's the blue bottle right here. And this is a blend of half molasses distillate and half cane juice distillate. Now, this new Reposado is 100% cane juice and actually a single cask and single cane varietal release. Now, the varietal in question is Caña Mexicana, and the cane juice is wild fermented and distilled on a wood-fired copper pot still. And then it's aged 6 months in an ex-tequila cask. But not just any ex-tequila cask, specifically, it's a Fortaleza cask. Now, if you don't know tequila, Fortaleza is kind of a big deal in that scene. The kids love it. Now, this is a single cask release, and it's been out for about a month. Now, I don't have an exact number, but maybe somewhere around 250 bottles were produced. Now, my guess is that there probably aren't a whole lot of bottles left floating around. And frankly, you can blame all of the tequila heads out there for snatching up these bottles because of the whole Fortaleza thing. Next up, we have Rum JM and their new Atelier series, which consists of 3 cocktail-focused, calm distilled, aged cane juice rums. Now, technically, these have been available now for a couple of months, but as far as I can tell, only in like 1 or 2 stores in California. However, as of last week, you can actually now buy them from Rum JM's website. They ship to like all but 7 states. The idea behind the range is to take 3 characteristics of the terroir surrounding the distillery and highlight each one in a different release through very specific barrel manipulation and barrel aging. Rum JM has an on-site cooperage, so that allows them the flexibility of experimenting with different char levels, barrel sizes, and wood types. By combining these different variables with the distillate, they end up with these 3 new releases. Now, let's start off with the first release, Jardin Fruite. Now, the rum has been aged for 24 months in lightly toasted French and American oak casks and bottled at 43% ABV. Here, the flavor profile is all about a medley of different fruit-forward flavors with a touch of spice. Then there's the Epis Creoles. This has been aged a minimum of 3 years in a combination of new and used French and American oak of varying toast and char levels, and is bottled at 46% ABV. Here, the flavor profile is very much about a mix of big, bold, warm spices. And the last release is the Fumee Volcanique. Now, this has been aged 12 to 14 months in heavily recharred bourbon barrels and then bottled at 49% ABV. This one is all about earthy smoke and burnt oak. Now, I've mixed a bunch with the Jardin Fruite and I've enjoyed it, and I've only just started now mixing with the other 2. And look, I'm no real bartender, so I'm looking forward to seeing what actual bartenders and bars can do with these rums and their distinct flavor profiles. Next up, we have not 1, but 3 releases from Hampden Estate in Jamaica. Now, all 3 are considered to be part of their core lineup, so it's finally nice to have like a full lineup from Hampden. First up is HLCF Classic. Now, this is their HLCF mark or base distillate, and it's been aged 4 years in ex-bourbon casks and bottled at 60% ABV. Now, if you're not familiar with the HLCF distillate, it's basically what Rumfire is. A big, bold, wild fermented, funky tropical fruit bomb of a high ester rum. Now, the difference being that Rumfire is unaged and bottled at 63% ABV, and this is aged 4 years and bottled at 60%. Now, I love Rumfire, and I really use it almost exclusively in making cocktails. I personally don't really consider it much of a sipper, but now I'm very curious to see how 4 years of aging kind of rounds it out enough to maybe turn it into one. We'll find out. Next up is Hampden's Pagos release. It's been aged 100% in 500-liter Oloroso sherry casks from Spanish brandy and winemaker Bodegas Fundador. The sherry casks contained up to 30-year-old sherry. They were emptied and filled up with the rum. Now, there is no age statement listed for this rum. I imagine it's probably just aged a handful of years. Now, at some point, the rum is then blended together and bottled at a very drinkable 52% ABV. Now, the idea of being aged the entire time in sherry casks, for some people, that might be cause for concern, as sometimes sherry can overtake a rum. However, I think Hampden's rums are big and bold enough that they're likely not to get overrun by the sherry. But we'll find out. And lastly, from Hampden, we have the newest addition to their Great House series, the 2023. just in time for 2024. Now, this is an annual series that usually features a blend of 2 of Hampden's marks that are aged and blended together. Now, they've been releasing this series since 2019, and the last one, the 2022, was probably my favorite blend to date. Now, there isn't a whole lot of information on the blend itself, both in terms of the marks used and how long they've been aged. We do, of course, know that it's bottled at 57% ABV. Now, I'd love to know what the marks are, but either way, the Great House releases are ones that I'm always looking forward to. And that's it for Hampden Estate. Now, next up, we have not 1, not 3, but 6 different releases from Australian brand and bottler Dead Reckoning. Now, a few months back, they launched in the US with 2 releases, an Australian and a Fijian rum. And now, we've got a whole lot more. First up is the Nelson's Dockyard. Now, this started as a 2-year-old rum from Antigua Distillery from the Caribbean island of Antigua. It was then aged an additional 2 years in Australia within Apera casks. If you were like me and you don't know what Apera is, well, that's the term that Australian and Canadian winemakers now use to refer to their versions of sherry, as the term sherry is protected domination of origin terminology referencing fortified wine made specifically in Jerez, Spain. Next up from Dead Reckoning is their Killik release. Now, Killik is a distillery out in Melbourne, and this particular release is an unaged high ester pot still rum bottled at 55% ABV. Now, Killik uses ingredients like dunder and muck in the production of this rum, much in the same way that Hampden Estate uses it to make rum fire. Now, this might be the Dead Reckoning release that I'm the most looking forward to. Unaged, funky, high ester rums are kind of my jam, so I'm very much looking forward to trying this in some drinks. Next up on our list of Dead Reckoning rums is the Mutiny South Pacific 21-year-old rum. Now, this is an all pot still Fijian rum aged all 21 of those years at the South Pacific Distillery, and it's bottled at a hefty 65% ABV. Now, with stats like that, you'd imagine that this probably would be a fairly pricey rum, and you'd be right, it's priced around $235. And the next release from Dead Reckoning is their HMS Antelope. Now, this is a Navy rum inspired blend of a whole bunch of rums. All right, we've got the following rums in this blend. A 6-year-old pot still rum from Australian distillery Beanley, 5 to 7-year-old calm still rums from Trinidad, a 5-year-old pot still rum from Worthy Park in Jamaica, 4 to 7-year-old pot and calm still rums from Demerara Distillers in Guyana, and finally, a 5-year-old pot and calm still rum from Foursquare in Barbados. All of that is blended together and then aged 1 more year in Australia and then bottled at 55% ABV. That was a lot, but I am intrigued. And the next release from Dead Reckoning is their Barbados PX release. Now, this is a single cask release which started as an 8-year-old tropically aged Foursquare pot and calm still rum. Then it was shipped over to Australia, where it was aged 6 months in a 40-year-old Pedro Jimenez sherry cask, and then another year in a high char ex-bourbon barrel, and then it was bottled at 52% ABV. Finally, why just have one Barbados release when you can have 2? The next release is the Port Broadside Barbados. The rum also started as a tropically aged 8-year-old Foursquare pot and calm still rum. It was then shipped over to Australia, where it was aged 8 months in a 60-year-old ex-tawny cask, and then another 22 months in a high char ex-bourbon barrel. That gets it to a total of 10.5 years of aging, and it's bottled at 52% ABV. So what is up with Dead Reckoning and their super old barrels? You know, that first Barbados rum had a 40-year-old cask, and this second one has a 60-year-old cask. I would love to know what casks that old do to a rum, if anything at all. I mean, are they kind of exhausted at that point? I don't know, but inquiring minds would like to know. Alrighty, well, that was the last of the Dead Reckoning releases and the last rum release for this video. Mostly just dominated by those 3 brands. Hopefully we'll see more brands releasing rum in the coming months. Now, what I'd like to know is, are any of these rums exciting to you, or is there one that you're particularly looking forward to? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks so much for watching. Catch you next time. Cheers.